Hello, thank you for that lovely welcome. So I'm Ed Fear, I'm a senior creative designer at Mediatonic, and I'm going to talk to you about some lessons I learned, which I didn't know I was capable of learning lessons, but apparently I am. So just to give you a very quick introduction as to who I am, I've worked on about 10 games now in various capacities throughout the years, usually as a writer. On most of these as a writer. Hatoful Boyfriend was kind of more forensic design of the original game and stuff like that. But yes, and I'm currently... Oh, no. So, a really good way, I think, of describing the sort of person that I am is for me to give you my mission statement. And that is that I want to become the Jackie Collins of video games. Now, I say that for three reasons. One, because it's funny, and you proved that. Two, because it's true. And three, because it weeds out very snooty people who who would kind of scoff at that, who I don't particularly want to talk to anyway. So what do I mean by this? I mean, Jackie Collins is the queen of trashy fun, and I think there is such value in trashy fun that, especially in the indie community, I think a lot of it isn't really kind of... people aren't going for that at the moment. But this is not my time to give my manifesto about trashy fun. That's another talk. Hopefully I'll get another chance to do that if I'm ever invited back anywhere. My current game is Murder by Numbers, which I'm directing at Mediatonic at the moment, which is out early next year. It is a kind of visual novel / detective game / pixel puzzle game. It's very bright and fun and camp, which are basically all of the things that I like. Some people say may describe me. I'll leave that to you to decide. So the opportunity I had here was that this was basically my first opportunity to write a gay character. Like I say, I've written for about 10 games now, but I've never really had the opportunity to do that for various reasons. That's a lie, actually. I did write one, but he was, as I believe the official term is, this isn't Dumbledored. Which is a verb I'm trying to make happen, a bit like fetch, which is where you say that a character is gay after the fact, but make no reference to it in the game whatsoever because you're scared. So thanks for that, J.K. Rowling. Previous to that, when I've been working with publishers, I didn't have the confidence to pitch for it, or I knew people who had pitched for it and had been rejected for various nefarious reasons. But this was a game that I was directing, and it was a game that had no publisher. We were self-publishing it. So I was quite stupidly given quite a lot of creative freedom. So I thought, right, that's it. This time, no Dumbledore. So sorry, but that's it. So if you saw the description of this talk, you may have seen that it describes the creation of a third-wave gay character. And I think I may have made this term up. I don't say that as being proud, but I may say that as in I think I might be talking out of my behind. But I'm going to describe what I mean by that very quickly. So in terms of kind of cultural representations of gay people within popular culture and games, I see that the first wave of characters are kind of caricatures, depictions of gay people as being weird and different. I would like to stand up here and say that these depictions are in the past, but they are not. This is Persona 5. This is a game from not really that long ago with some really, really terrible, terrible gay characters. And I think it's important to call that out when it happens. So we're largely past this in a lot of media, not entirely. Then I kind of, second wave, I call essentially downplayed, or gay as a secondary trait. So a good example of this is, for example, Devrim Kay in Destiny 2. I don't want to, shit on this, to be honest with you. This is an important step in representation. And some people really like this, that's absolutely fine. But this is basically the character where they're a character, but also they're gay. And they may mention it, very briefly, oh, by the way, I have a husband. Well, okay, great. But that's there is a degree of representation there, but to me it's not realistic. It's not certainly the people I know. So that's why I kind of talk about third wave gay characters, which are as gay as they bloody well want to be. This is, I feel like in a lot of ways, this is basically gay as a primary trait. And it's people who unashamedly embrace their sexuality and are happy for it to form part of their personality. So I think as certainly from a personal point of view, as growing up as a gay person, there was a period where I wanted to proudly state that being gay was just a small part of who I was, and it's nothing to do with me. Nowadays, as I've grown into my 30s and kind of learned to lean into it a little bit, I realise that it actually is quite a big part of my personality, and I'm more than fine with that. So here are kind of some examples of characters that I put in that kind of category. The incredible Titus Andromedon from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, who is an absolute treasure. And I think in games there aren't that many, but I think Dorian from Dragon Age Inquisition is quite a good example of this. I don't think he really attempts to hide his kind of campness or anything like that. So these are kind of, this is what I mean by a third wave character. When I was starting to write, starting to kind of do the early work on my numbers with my co-writer, I decided, okay, I want to make a character that's like this, and I was inspired by a number of things. One was the movie Mannequin, which is the movie where Kim Cattrall is a mannequin that comes to life. It is utterly brilliant and utterly terrible. But it has a character in it called Hollywood Montrose, who is really quite a very stereotypical depiction of a gay man. But he's the hero. He's basically one of the main heroes of the film. He's a wonderful character. He's never the butt of any jokes. And I was really surprised to watch a film from the late 80s that had a positive depiction of a queer person of colour. I was really surprised by that. So I kind of watched this not that long before, so that was kind of in my mind somewhere. And the other one was the wonderful Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye. So this had kind of come on Netflix for the first time about the time that I was starting to think of things. And when I had a very weird relationship with Jonathan, when I first, that sounds, I mean, yeah, I think we both wish. So when I first I was forced to watch Queer Eye by a friend of mine, and when I first started it, I saw Jonathan and I thought, oh my God, I am going to hate this person. He is so extra, even though extra is basically everything I love. But by the end of that first episode, I was truly, madly, deeply in love with him. And the reason was it was because of his authenticity and his unashamed kind of, the way he just embraced who he was, and I just completely fell in love. He's kind of, to me, he is the shining light of that show. He doesn't care that he's camp and femme, it's not a problem. And I also love his kind of verbosity, the way that he says things in about 10 times as many words that need to be said, but kind of spins a tale as he's going along, and it's wonderful. So I was kind of really inspired, and I thought, I'm starting to feel like I'm seeing more like positive depictions of femme gay men. So that's kind of what I want to do. I want to create a character that kind of fits into this. So I decided, when I was thinking about starting this, I wasn't really very prescriptive. We had a bunch of pre-production time, so I wanted to really start with a very basic idea and then just write and kind of see where it took me, and rather than kind of sitting down and working out the character's backstory or anything like that, I just wanted to kind of treat it organically. So literally, that was kind of the very basic thing I started with, which is that I am very sure that Jonathan Van Ness is actually a very shady person, but he's very good at not showing it on Queer Eye. And I love writing shady people. It's literally my favourite thing because I love shady people. So that was kind of the very initial thing that I kind of sat down with. And so we were very lucky to have our characters designed by Hato Moa, who's the creator of Hato for Boyfriend. So I kind of put together a very, very rough description of the kind of sort of person I wanted to see. I made her watch Queer Eye. And she, within a day, got back with some kind of initial ideas, and I was very drawn to kind of the one on the far right. And then literally the day after that, Casey was designed. It was remarkably quick, but I just loved everything about kind of about his design. Moa put in the detail about the kind of the butterfly in the hair and all of that kind of stuff, and I really liked it. And this is where we ended up with him. I really like his design because I feel like obviously there's quite a lot of campness in there. One of the things I didn't show on the previous slide is his high heels, which I'm pretty sure I wrote in there is like, that's got to be in there. Because I really wanted to write a character who just didn't really care what people thought about how he looked. He was just kind of expressing himself in that way. So this is kind of where we ended up, and I was really happy with this. I thought, It looks visually striking. He looks, camp without being like ridiculously over feminine. He's very handsome. That's always a good thing. So Moa did this, and I was like, well, great. Okay, that's a large part of this sorted. And so I thought, I kind of was there, and I kind of thought, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, we've got the visual side, but I need to do some kind of character explorations. So I started to try writing some scenes, basically. The main ones that I kind of wrote were with two of the other characters in the game. So this is Becky on the left. She is the kind of very caricatured, spoiled brat Hollywood actress, because the game is set in Hollywood. I didn't mention that earlier. She's the star of the show, and she very much knows it. Very, very inspired by my internal stories of what Lindsay Lohan might be like, but without the sad decline. I always had. I can't believe I went there. I always had the image of her. My period of growth in popular culture was reading Heat magazine, and every week there being a picture of Lindsay Lohan in giant glasses and an even bigger Starbucks, like hungover, walking down the road. And that was my impressions of Becky. So she's really irritating in an enjoyable way. And I wanted Casey to have a really good kind of spark off her. And the other character is Honor, who's our main character in the game. I very much wanted, she's kind of their best friends. And I really wanted to kind of represent a lot of the relationships that I have with my female best friends, which is kind of the stereotypical gay best friend kind of thing. But has played a very big part of my life and are some of my most treasured friendships. So I really wanted to kind of write that kind of friendship between those two characters. So I went away and I kind of did some ideas about what, this is very, very rough, early, not even know if these are going to go in the game, not even know if this interaction is going to be a thing. But went away and did this, and then kind of shared them with my co-writer and my boss, and we kind of liked where the character was going. We thought he had a good kind of interplay with the other people. Like I say, it's very rough. It does embarrass me to show that. But it felt like it was going in the right direction. That's great. This is when I had my first realization, was that Jonathan Van Ness's verbosity doesn't really work in a text-only environment. So this is kind of an example of a line that I wrote back and actually quite liked back in those days. But when it came to editing, it just felt like it was overwritten, and it was very much reliant on your own internal voice doing it. Like, I feel like if there was an actor that was delivering that line in the right way, they could make it a pretty good line. But without that, I would be relying on the reader to kind of do that. And it just didn't feel like it could come off wrong to a lot of people. So a lot of that kind of went away. So I kept on writing. I was feeling happy with where it was going. We have a LGBTQ group at Mediatonic that's pretty big. There's over 20 people. And one of the aims of the group is to encourage and spur each other on when it comes to kind of doing representation in our games, and trying to lift each other up and trying to kind of give people the confidence to speak out when they feel like something's worth speaking out about. So I'd kind of written these scenes, and I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling, like I was doing a great job. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go and share some of this stuff with the group. I'm going to show them what the cool stuff we're doing. Oh, aren't they going to, wish that they were on our team? What's interesting is that as I had been writing it, I'd pushed the character too far. And I show this line. I am so embarrassed by this line. Not only is it a first draft, it's also empirically shit. And I share it with you all today as an exercise of cleansing my soul. I can only progress from here if I admit to my crimes. But yeah, I had kind of pushed him. I wanted him to kind of be sex positive, and I wanted him to, be kind of flirty. And unwittingly, I'd kind of pushed him a bit too far in that direction. So I shared some of this stuff with the group, and their reaction was not great. That's putting it nicely. They felt that this really wasn't it, that it wasn't really a positive depiction of a gay person, and also that it basically, if there was going to be someone like that, then maybe it needed balancing out by somebody who was not quite like that. And so I'm going to talk about these kind of these points and kind of what I thought of them. My reaction wasn't to be dismissive or to be angry. I'd gone in there thinking that, to be honest with you, I hadn't really gone in there looking for feedback. I'd gone in there to show off. And I was very much handed, my ass on a plate. So my reaction wasn't that I was angry or I was indifferent. I was actually completely crushed by this. My first port of call was where I always go to when I get anything wrong, which is that I'm a complete failure because I have a very strong inner critic. The next one was kind of a bit more insidious, which is that if I can't do this, if I can't write a gay character, then what on earth can I write? Like, this is what I know about. Like, surely this is a really damning indictment about my abilities as a writer. Possibly it is. And kind of the last one, which, is, I didn't feel massively myself. I did to a degree, but I can imagine coming along with a lot of this, is this idea of like, if I don't get this right, I'm letting the side down. Letting the side down. I'm being a bad representative. And this is a really insidious and not great way to think. I felt like this for a while, and then I realised kind of my failure was that I had really put unrealistic expectations on myself. I hate to use this as the straw man, but I'm going to do it. What straight white man looks at the straight white characters that he's written and goes, "Oh God, is it representing the entirety of the plurality of straight people?" No, they don't do that. Like, obviously they care about their characters, they care about writing good characters, but they don't feel this weight of representation upon them. And this kind of led to my second realization, which is that it's really important to get underrepresented people in the room. We talk about this all the time. How do we get good gay characters? How do we get good, female characters? Well, we need to get women in the room. We need to get gay men in the room. Well, yes, that's really important. But it's also really important to not make one person bear the responsibility, bear the weight of that representation. Just because you suddenly hire a woman into your writing team doesn't mean that you can go, well, it's any problems, shit, it's up to her to flag them. We can just do whatever the hell we like. That's not how it works. No one person should hold that, because no one person represents the entirety of a group. The clue's in the word group. It's a multitude. It's a plurality. So there is a caveat to this in that when you're talking about working with consultants, in that regard, their job is to represent a group to you and to represent what people may think about your content. So it's a little bit different when it's consultants, but certainly if you're a writer and you're on a team, you don't have to have all of that weight on you. And kind of this leads on to my next realization that I had, which is that no single character can represent an entire community. You will annoy someone. I know that the stereotypes that I've chosen to base Casey on will make some people roll their eyes. That's fine. This is based on my life experiences and what I like. It may not be to everyone's taste. That's okay. Unfortunately, the current state of representation in games is so bad that people want us to represent everyone in their characters. And what I mean by that is, there are so few depictions of a lot of underrepresented groups that when there finally is one, people go, "Oh my God, finally, it's going to be me, I'm going to be there." And then it's not them, and then they feel like, well, this is a terrible character. Because right now there's so little that everyone expects everything to be everything. We are so starved for good representation that this is how it is. I honestly feel that this will get better as representation becomes more normal. That people will start to not expect that kind of everything from one character, and I hope that that's kind of where we go as kind of as a society, but who knows. So I started to think about kind of, I pushed Casey towards a stereotype that a lot of people can kind of see as negative. So then I started to worry, oh God, if I rely too much on stereotypes, am I a hack writer, blah, 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 all of this kind of stuff. And I thought about it a lot, and I came to the realization that there is absolutely nothing wrong with stereotypes. Every single person in this room conforms to a number of stereotypes, be it about their gender, their job, their social class, their sexuality, where they come from, whatever. The reason these stereotypes are pervasive is because they're true. I was going to stand up here and I was going to list every single stereotype of a gay person and which one of those that I apply to, but there isn't time for that. So what I will say, we'll be here for a long time. But what I will say is, in the process of writing these slides, I listened to Cher's Dancing Queen album, which is clinically proven to be the gayest album of all time. I watched an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race and cried. And I got bored and checked Grindr. So, stereotypes. They're true. They're real. The problem with stereotypes is that they need to be a foundation. Your character obviously has to be more than that. Stereotypes are actually useful because they're hooks. They're handholds that people can grab onto when they see your character, when they first get to know your character, and they can go, okay, I get something about them. And that's great, and that's your opportunity then to subvert that or to build on it in a way that people aren't expecting. But you've got to get people to grab on first. If your characters never transcend the stereotypes, then they will be empty characters, essentially. And kind of the final realization that I had was to notice the difference between stereotypes and caricatures, and to really realize that. It turns out, in my research for this talk, I know I did some, that the word caricature is from an Italian word, and it literally means a loaded portrait. I think that tells you everything you need to know. A caricature is bad because it's loaded with bad intention, bad representation. Caricatures can be good, but in a lot of cases they're not good. And this and my true realization was that intrinsically, I, through my lived experience, kind of know the difference. And, also, caveat, I didn't know the difference. But as a person of an underrepresented group, you will tend to know which of the stereotypes are true and which of the ones that have been placed on that community. And that's where your power lies. But as I say, here, we're looking at KC, and I had inadvertently pushed him towards a negative stereotype. So it's really important, again, to say that no one person can bear the weight of their group. And this is why it's really important, that I had our LGBT group to reach out to, who could kind of point me in the right direction and make me realise that I had taken a wrong turn. If you are the only person of your minority in a room or your underrepresented group, then you need to find people that you can kind of share this with, and people who you can get opinions on, because it shouldn't be just on you. Hopefully you're not the only person, but if you are, find... Oh God, they always say find your tribe, don't they? It's disgusting. It's true. But find people that you can kind of bounce this stuff off, and who will make sure that you're not going in the wrong direction. This was my point from before. Casey's body language there is entirely the same as the body language of the terrible person from Persona 5. But I believe that the difference is my intention behind it, and kind of the fact that these characters are meant to be an annoyance, and Casey is meant to be, one of the main characters, and somebody who I dearly hope that players will come to love. Okay, so that's pretty much... I say this is the end. It's not. The whole point of me doing this talk was that we need to start talking about this. We talk so much about how to get in the room that we don't talk about what you do when you get there. And this is what I wanted to do with this talk. I wanted to kind of show the fact that you can get it wrong, and that you can need other people to kind of set you on the right path. So we need to start talking about this more. And I know that there will be people who will see this, maybe people in the room or people who watch it later, who will disagree with what I've said. That is fine. I encourage you to talk to me and to tell me that I'm wrong. I will ignore you, but let's at least pretend to get a conversation started. Thank you very much.